Rob Zombie, stop yelling at me. Rob Zombie's 31 stars Sherry Moon Zombie, Richard Brake, Jeff Daniel Phillips, and is directed by Rob Zombie. Before I get started on this review, I just want to dedicate this review to one of our Killer Flicks friends, Dylan Clancy, whose mother passed away a year ago this week. So Dylan, this one's for you, buddy. What's up, guys? We're going to review Rob Zombie's 31, which comes out in theaters later this month, but you can get it on VOD right now on Amazon, on Vudu, on what have you. I did it, and was it good? No, it wasn't. So Rob Zombie's 31, it takes place in the 70s, 1976, and you got this traveling circus led by Charlie, who is Sherry Moon Zombie, and Roscoe, who is Jeff Daniel Phillips, and some other characters. But they end up in the wrong place at the wrong time. They get ambushed by this group who do this game called 31 in this big abandoned warehouse. Every year on October 31st, they play this game, and if the quote-unquote victims can last for 12 hours, then they are free to go. But in that 12 hours, they're fair game, and it can be scary. Now, like I said, this was not a good movie, but I will say that this did have some things going for it, and I think Rob Zombie always has potential. I do love some of his movies. I like Devil's Rejects, I like Halloween 2, but more times than not, he suffers from one-dimensional characters, lack of character depth, and really that gets in the way of a good movie. And this movie is a perfect example of that because it does have quite a few technical aspects going for it. But unfortunately, it's the characters. So let's get into the pros though. First off, I do like the premise of this. With a good script, this could have been really interesting, really entertaining. I like the idea of a group of people that are fending for their lives for the next 12 hours, but there is a light at the end of that tunnel. They can get out of there in 12 hours. And also, this movie is lit beautifully. Most of the scenes are so interesting looking. There's a lot of colors. You know, most of the scenes really pop out at you, and I do like that. And also the score. Rob Zombie did not go with Tyler Bates, who had done his previous scores. He opted to go a different route with this one. He even did some of the music himself, but this is a very 70s Carpenter-ish type score, and it works for the most part. Now, there is one scene where it sounds like they were completely ripping off The Fog, but it's just one little segment, so I'm not going to hold that against them. But I really did dig the score in 31. And also the editing. Rob Zombie always makes really cool editing choices in his movies. There's always something on the frame to keep you interested, and that's what a good editor does. And before we get into the bad, the characters aren't all for naught. Sherry Moon Zombie I actually liked in this movie. Rob Zombie made her a badass. I mean, I guess you can't blame him, she is his wife. But like I said, I really enjoyed her, especially at the end. Really, all the quote-unquote good guys in this movie, they didn't bother me at all. They're not really annoying or anything, but there's not really that much of a buildup of their characters. So, you know, I've said this many times before, this is horror 101. When you don't make the characters likable, then you don't care if they die. And that happened to be the problem with this one. I didn't really know anything about these characters. You know, they were on the road and then they were in this warehouse thrown into this game. And so their actions during this game are the only thing they had to make them likable. But unfortunately, the script is not strong enough in this movie to make them likable. Now let's get into the cons. And it's really just one big con, and it's the characters, especially the villains. All the villains in this movie, they are not interesting. They're one-dimensional, they're one note. They pretty much do the same thing. Are they crazy? Yes. Should they be crazy in this environment? Yes. But let me give you a perfect example of a great villain who is crazy. That would be the Joker. But the Joker is so interesting. These villains, not interesting at all. The one that might have had a bit going for him is Doomhead, played by Richard Brake, especially at the very beginning. I liked him at the beginning, but when we see him outside of his work environment, then he's just trashy, disgusting, Rob Zombie-ish. And I'm not saying Rob Zombie as a person is disgusting, I'm saying he often makes his characters disgusting, especially his villains. But there's a difference between disgusting and interesting, and his villains are not interesting. Also, the script is a big problem with this movie. That is part of the reason why there wasn't enough character development, because the characters kept saying the same type things over and over. A lot of the conversations they were having with each other was just mundane, and as a direct result, again, you don't care when they die. So in the end, guys, I'm gonna give 31 a 2 hours loss. It's not really a movie I wanna watch again, and it's a shame because it did have some really cool visuals going for it. And before I go, I gotta remind you guys, we're in the middle of 31 Days of October. I just dropped the week 1 video yesterday. I had Spooky Astronauts, I had Zach vs. Blue Ray Mountain, and I had Be Kind Rewind reviews, and it was just a great time. So make sure you check that out. Next week I'm gonna have 2 more guests for you, and I'm having a blast. Also, make sure you join the Killer Flicks Facebook group where we talk horror all day, every day, especially now. Like, subscribe, comment, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, and Drumdum out.